This is the Financially Simple Podcast, a show dedicated to destroying the complexities of money for today's small business owner. And now, here's your host, pizza-loving, certified financial planner, Justin Goodbread.
Welcome to Financially Simple. Today we continue our deep dive into the subject, building your team for maximum value growth. Today's episode is titled, How to Build the Best Company to Work For, Part 2. Now, Part 2 automatically denotes there was a Part 1, and last episode we dealt with Part 1, and we dealt with culture, and how culture is like, if you'll remember toward the end of the episode, a barnacle. Yes, as you may remember, I grew up on the coast in South Georgia, and we had barnacles that decided to grow on everything. They would grow on the boats, they would grow on docks, they would grow anywhere they could get, and ultimately they would cause problems. We talked about how a barnacle on a boat can create drag, can cost more fuel, can create biofouling, can make the directional changes of the boat. All these things could create problems. And ultimately, just like a barnacle in business, the culture of business is very similar. If we don't have the culture right, it will slow us down. It'll cost us more to operate and ultimately causes problems when we have to change direction as business dictates. Today, I want to deal with part 2 of this. And I want to start off by saying that in the 1989, the Second International Quality Symposium, now that's a mouthful, 1989 Second International Quality Symposium that took place in Mexico, there was a particular study which came about. Now, it's a long study, so I'm going to read it to you and you can look it up. It was the quality improvement and TQC management for Calsonic in Japan and overseas. Told you, long study. Anyways, it's a study that purports that in organizations, there is an iceberg of awareness or an iceberg of ignorance that exists. I use the word iceberg of ignorance. Some people call it the iceberg of awareness. It allegedly documents that there's a level of knowledge about problems existing within an organization, and they are known throughout the various tiers of management and through the team. So whenever I say the iceberg of ignorance, your mind may go to Discovery Channel, watching icebergs break apart or falling off of mountains and going into the ocean. I've seen those. My mind goes to the tragic event of the Titanic. And anybody who knows, we realize that the ship hit an iceberg. Why? Well, there's lots of reasons behind it, but it did nonetheless. But what happened? The iceberg ended up causing damage to the ship and it sank. Now, here's what's interesting. What we see sticking out of the water is such a small part of the actual effect. In fact, some 96% of the total iceberg is often hidden beneath the water. Only 4% actually sticks over the surface of the water. So I was telling the kids about icebergs, and I said, guys, it's kind of like a mountain made of ice. There's a pinnacle. There's a top of the mountain where you can climb up the top, stand, and post a flag if you want to, or a picture of you holding up your selfie stick. Yeah, there's the top of the mountain, and then the very bottom of the mountain is really wide and spread out, so it holds the pinnacle. And the iceberg's no different. 96% of the iceberg typically is beneath the surface of the water. If we get that, then we realize that from a management's perspective, we have a problem identifying all of the iceberg, all the problem. There is a concept developed by Richard Barrett called the 7 levels of organizational awareness. The 7 levels of organizational awareness. And you can actually, I'm going to put a link in the show on how to go and take the assessment. You can take a personal assessment of your levels of awareness. But it's the basis of this particular concept is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. That's basically where it comes from. But instead of capping out on self-actualization, Richard Barrett expanded the model to encompass transformation and some higher level areas that businesses and organizations needs to be aware of. So if you understand some of the basic things, we all have needs. And the way this particular system is built is it's built in the form of an hourglass. So I want you to think of an hourglass. We were playing a game not too long ago, and there was a small hourglass inside the game that would denote how much time you had to make your move. And we know how an hourglass works. There's sand in it. And as you flip the hourglass on its end, the sand will be at the top, and it all goes to a small pinch point where the glass has been molded together. It only allows so much sand to flow through the hourglass, ultimately down to the bottom. So when all the sand fell through the hourglass, either your turn is up or the time was up. And you would flip the hourglass back over. And hourglasses have been used for long periods of time. I want you to think from the bottom up. So we're going to start with the hourglass at the bottom. And this is where Maslow hierarchy needs go to basics. I mean, number one, the very bottom basic is survival. Every person is in a survival mode. Is your business in a survival mode? Now, I'm not talking about survival from the sense that we can barely make it by, but in the same token, I am. Imagine an organization that has fair and beneficial or equitable ways to manage its finances and its pay. They've moving past the fact of greed or necessity or floundering. They've moved past the basics, and now they've created a stable environment to build an organization on top of. They've got a great foundation. This provides a safe and comfortable work conditions for people. So at every one of our core basic needs, we all want to work for a company that is way past survival mode. We want them to realize that our paychecks are going to be paid. In the early days, I can remember times when I wouldn't get my paycheck, and we were in a survival mode, and I would make sure that the team was paid for, but many times I may not get a paycheck. In order to drive your team members up from number 1 through number 7, by the way, there's 7 levels of organizational awareness. In order to get from survival mode, we must provide a safe and comfortable working environment. The second level in organizational awareness is actually the relationships. When you walk into your office or on the job each day, do people smile at you and greet each other warmly? Is there a sense of respect? We talked about that last episode, respect. Do people view the organization as healthy? That's just basic number 2. That's the hierarchical stance, is we go from survival mode. Now we're just looking to be part of something. That's number 2. Now from number 2, it goes into number 3, and that's where self-esteem comes in. The organization invests in high-performing system. It trains people to be excellent doing their jobs. The team is proud to tell other people what they are, who they work for. And the self-esteem, you're dealing with high performance. You have a company who has systems and processes. We've talked about systems and processes. Quality control, best practices. There's pride in performance. See, with levels 1, 2, and 3, these are basics. These are basics for every human being. We want to make sure that we're going to get paid for the job we do. We want to enjoy the people we work for, and we want to have the ability to feel good about what we're doing. The organization has to have basic finances in place. It has to have a good, healthy sense of respect for people. And it has to have the ability to train people in high performance systems to allow people to tell others that they're proud about the organization they work for. So that's the bottom of the hourglass. Those are the basics. That's where everything falls down to. Now here's the pinch point. Here's the hard part to rise from number 3 through number 7. Level number 4, this is a pinch point. This is where we find transformation. This organization is moving forward through innovation and continuous improvement. They're not settling. They're not just lackluster. They're not just there ho-hum trying to make a paycheck and pay employees. No, this organization is trying to become bigger and better. They're being adaptive and resilient to changing times. They are trying to empower people, encouraging people to ask tough questions. It's number 4. So at transformation, we see accountability, adaptability, empowerment, teamwork, goals, orientation, and personal growth.
You are listening to Financially Simple, destroying the complexities of money for today's small business owner.
Now, if you can make it through that pinch point, then at the top is where we ultimately find satisfaction. This is the ultimate, the positive focus that every team member wants. Number 5 is internal cohesion. People feel inspired by the vision and the values of the organization they work for. There's a high level of trust and a deep sense of purpose, fun, and team spirit. That's number 5. They have shared value. There's vision. There's commitment. There's integrity. There's passion, creativity, openness, transparency. It's number 5. How are you doing so far? If you were to assess your team members, your employees at this point, would they say, man, I just want to make sure I get a paycheck? They're at level 1. They'd say, man, I like the people I work for. I don't like the people I work for. You either like good number 2 or number 3. Are they at the point where they say, we want to learn more. We want to transform. That's a number 4 employee. Now, when you get up into level 5, we're dealing with the internal community. Level 6, we're now at strategic alliances and partnership. That's making a difference. Many employees, many team members want to make sure they're making a difference. This is a collaborative working environment, working with team, others, congregations, community, vendors, where you're working in a win-win for all who are concerned. The investment in leadership development means that leaders are making a sustainable difference both inside the business and outside the organization. So level 6 is you're making a difference. The easiest way I can talk about it is environmental awareness. Here in East Tennessee, we have this road is maintained by. The road that we're on is maintained by a company called Junk Be Gone. I know the owner. His name is Mike. Great guy. But he maintains the road that our office is on out here. That's a community awareness. And so his team gets together and they go by and they pick up trash on the road to make sure the road stays nice. They feel like they're doing something better than just having to go to work and punch a clock. Number 7 is like the creme de la. This is like the top of the top in organizational awareness. And that is where service comes to play. You're like, Justin, we have service. No, I'm not talking about providing service to customers. I'm talking about ethics is not about compliance, but in truly doing what they believe is right deep down in their hearts. There's a knowing that by doing the work that people in their community and future generations can be impacted. They're socially responsible. They have a long-term perspective. All right. So when you go through levels 1 through 7, we have that pinch point number 4. You may be saying, dude, Justin, I've got a lot of employees that just work about the paycheck. I don't have any employees that are focusing on community involvement. Well, friends, you don't have a company that is best in class at this point. So let's talk about why this matters. I'm going to give you the tale of 2 companies. Company number A is a best in class company. If you look at their grading from this assessment, you're going to notice equalization throughout the entire organization. They have pretty consistent area for survival. Everybody's going to score on survival. That's a must. They have relationship needs. They have self-esteem needs. There's even some in transformation. Where it gets interesting is they're scoring 2-1 on internal cohesion. This particular organization that was tested values, shared values, vision, and commitment more than anything else. Yeah, they do have some scoring in level 6 and level 7. So they're an equally balanced. And there's a thing called cultural entropy, what I'm going to describe in a second. It's only at 8%. So their number 1 value is customer satisfaction. Their number 2 value is making a difference. They want to make a difference in the lives of their customers and their community. Now let's compare the best in class business with one that's just probably like many of ours. If you look at their organization, the same exact assessment was provided and they scored every bit in 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3 were their major concerns. They did not get up into transforming anybody outside their very self-focused. Their number 1 value was blame. Their number 2 value was short-term focused. They had internal competition, passing the buck, informational hoarding. Those were the values that they said ran the company. Now, I don't know about you, but if I'm willing to pay a price for a company and I'm looking at company A versus company B, I'm going to pay a premium dollar for an organization that has a team that is not self-absorbed and not self-focused. And they're worried about customer satisfaction, number 1, as opposed to blame, number 1. So at this point, I'm going to ask you the question, how is your team scoring if you were to give them a assessment? How's your team scoring? If the assessment's given, here's the way it kind of works. And you can do this assessment yourself. I mean, this is on Barrett Values Metric. It's the website, as I'll put in the show notes, is valuecenter.com. But they'll go through 10 personal questions, and they'll talk about why you like things or why you don't. They'll go through 10 current cultural values, and they'll go through 10 desired cultural values. Now, out of every study I've ran, and even my own life, whenever I see the desired values, it's amazing. Most people want the best. They want to work for a company that has service to humanity, that deals with strategic alliances and partnerships, that builds internal community. They want that. But many times they'll say, no, we're not there yet. Our organization works with a blame game, manipulation, control, corruption, long hours, confusion. So if you were to test your employees, do you think that you would have the 8% cultural entropy or that you would have 57% cultural entropy? Cultural entropy measures the percentage of fear, dysfunction, negative, and destructive energy within the organization. That's what cultural entropy is. When you add up the total percentages of this assessment and you find out that the entropy is below 10%, then you have an organization that is healthy. If you have an organization that has greater than 40% entropy, then you have an organization which is not healthy. It's actually in crisis mode. If you were to do an assessment today on your company and your team, how would your team score your organization? Will they score it high or low? How would your team score themselves? Would they score themselves high or low? How would they score each other? With that, guys, I'm going to wrap up this episode of Financially Simple Podcast. I'm going to leave a lot of show notes on this particular one, some graphics in the blog post. Check it out at financiallysimple.com. And while you're there, sign up for the newsletter. Hey, look, I've got a ton of people reaching out to me on social media. They're listening to the episode and they said, Justin, you're getting a little bit better at these. Guys, I'm trying so hard to do better show notes, try to stay on topic for you. Hey, look, if you like the podcast, do me a favor. Go out and give us a rating on iTunes. We had a lot of people do that last week after I asked, and the team's like, Justin, what did you do? I said, I just asked people to give us a rating. Hey, look, if you like it, do me a favor. Give me a good rating. If you don't like it, leave me a rating. I want to see how to improve this thing. If you say, Justin, I've got some advice for you on improvements, shoot me an email, justin@financiallysimple.com. Guys, like I say every week, life is hard, life is good, and life can be frustrating. Money doesn't have to be. Let's continue to make our lives at least financially simple. Hey, y'all go out and make it a great day.
You have been listening to the Financially Simple Podcast. The information in this show is for informational purposes only. This show is not investment advice. Instead, seek help from a competent financial advisor. Justin Goodbread, CFP, is an investment advisor representative of Heritage Investors, a registered investment advisor.